The camera opens on a solemn morning. A crowd of people in dark, somber clothes stands at attention in front of a freshly dug grave. The sound of muffled sobs echoes through the cemetery, blending with the soft wind rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. In the distance, a small puppy, its fur a blend of dark brown and black, stands by the edge of the crowd. Its eyes are wide and searching, its small frame trembling under the weight of the day's sadness. The camera zooms in, focusing on its paws, which dig anxiously into the dirt. It seems out of place among the human mourners, but there's something deeply poignant about its presence. The camera shifts to a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a firefighter's uniform. He stands at the back of the crowd, his face hidden behind dark sunglasses. The anguish on his face is undeniable as his gaze locks onto the puppy, now slowly moving toward the grave. The camera pans back to the crowd, and we see the man's jaw tighten. He doesn't make a move to approach the puppy. Instead, his hands clutch a folded flag, an emblem of sacrifice and valor. But his heart is elsewhere. The connection between man and animal, now a broken thread, seems impossible to repair. The puppy approaches the grave slowly. It pauses and looks up at the man, its eyes filled with something that almost resembles recognition. There's an unmistakable pull in the air, something unexplained yet profoundly emotional. The camera cuts to the funeral proceedings, a moment of silence. The man steps forward, walking towards the small puppy, which now lies next to the gravesite, its head tilted slightly, as if it understands what's happening. The camera follows his every step, emphasizing the struggle in his posture. When he reaches the puppy, he kneels down beside it. His hands tremble as he reaches for the collar, and then he sees it. The tag. The tag is old, tattered, weathered, yet still legible. The camera zooms in, showing the engraved name, Max. Below it, a date that pierces through the quiet grief, 9/12/2016. He pulls the tag off slowly as if in disbelief. His breath catches. The camera lingers on the tag. The puppy doesn't move. The man's hands shake as he looks back at the mourners, but no one can see the connection between the puppy and the man's heartache. A shot of the sky. Dark clouds form and raindrops begin to fall, matching the sorrow that fills the moment. The man stands up slowly, keeping the tag in his hand. There's a heavy silence around him, yet the puppy remains by his side, its eyes never leaving his. A final moment. A pause. The camera zooms in on the puppy's eyes. There's a glimmer of recognition in its gaze, but it's fleeting. It's as if the puppy knows who the man is, but something is blocking it from fully connecting. It's a few days later. The funeral is a memory, but the man, now identified as David, sits alone in his small living room. The house is quiet. The only sound is the occasional creak of the floorboards as the puppy, now named Max, moves around. David's hand grips a photograph. The camera zooms in on it, an image of David and his best friend, a fellow firefighter, both smiling with Max by their side. The date on the photo is from several years ago, and the memory of their shared experiences, both on duty and off, is clear. He turns the photo over. "Always by my side," it reads, "no matter what." Max barks from the other room, pulling David back to the present. But when he gets up and walks to the door, he finds the puppy standing by the couch, tail wagging. Yet as David bends down, trying to approach, Max flinches away. "Hey boy, it's okay," David murmurs softly, his voice low and filled with longing. Max doesn't move. His eyes are distant, unfamiliar. The dog doesn't seem to recognize him. David sighs heavily, sitting on the floor. The room seems to close in around him, the silence thickening as the dog looks at him, but with nothing in his eyes. No spark of recognition. "Why don't you remember me?" David whispers, his voice trembling. Flashbacks begin. The camera cuts. Between scenes of David and his fallen friend, both laughing, working together. Max by their side, always alert, always protective. The flashes of joy are contrasted with the loneliness in David's eyes now. In the present, David offers Max food, his favorite treats, the ones that used to make his tail wag. But Max turns away, disinterested. It's like the connection they shared has vanished into thin air. David's frustration grows. He pushes through the grief and the confusion. Every day he tries, offering treats, playing with toys, using commands he knows Max once responded to, but nothing works. The puppy is distant, and David is slowly losing hope. One night, David sits in the living room, looking at the collar and tag on the table. His hands tremble as he picks it up, feeling the weight of it in his palm. He gazes at Max, who lies on the couch, staring blankly into the space ahead. "I'm trying, Max," David says softly. "I'm trying to get you back." Max's ears twitch. A small sound escapes from the dog, but it's almost imperceptible. But as quickly as it appears, the moment is gone. The camera zooms out slowly, showing David in the dimly lit room, his figure hunched and defeated. The weight of his loss is evident in every movement. Days pass. David's attempts to reconnect with Max continue, but progress is slow. The dog's distant behavior is a constant reminder of the emotional barrier between them. One afternoon, David decides to try something different. He takes Max's old ball, the one they used to play with every day in the park, and bounces it gently on the floor. Max looks up, his tail flicking once, twice. He stands slowly, approaching the ball, but when David moves closer, the dog steps back. His body language is tense, unsure. David's heart sinks. His mind flashes back to when Max was younger, energetic, always excited to fetch the ball. His eyes wander to the old military vest hanging in the corner of the room, a gift from his fallen friend. He takes it in his hands and gently places it on the floor beside Max. "Do you remember this?" David whispers. For a long moment, Max stares at the vest. His nose twitches, but he does nothing. David runs a hand through his hair, exasperated. "Maybe you're not the same dog anymore," he mutters. Just as he's about to give up, Max does something unexpected. He walks over to the vest, sniffing it carefully, and then the dog looks back at David. It's a subtle shift in expression, but it's enough. David's heart leaps in his chest. He reaches out slowly, placing a hand on Max's head. The dog flinches but doesn't pull away. David whispers, "It's okay. I'm here." Max remains still, his fur soft under David's fingers. The smallest of movements, the briefest of connections, are enough to reignite the spark of hope. But as David smiles, he sees something, a shadow of doubt in Max's eyes. The breakthrough comes on a stormy evening, the rain falling heavily outside. David sits on the couch, his head in his hands. The weight of his efforts, his failures, and his hopes is too much. He feels like he's losing Max for good. Suddenly the door creaks open. Max walks in, cautiously at first, but this time something is different. The dog's posture is slightly more relaxed. There's a glint in his eyes that wasn't there before. David watches as Max approaches the old rubber ball once more. The puppy nudges it with his nose, looking back at David. A smile slowly spreads across David's face. "That's it. Come on, boy, you remember." David whistles softly, a familiar, comforting sound. Max's ears twitch, then his tail starts to wag. The dog takes a tentative step forward, and then another. The camera lingers on the moment, David's hands trembling as he reaches out to Max. The dog walks into his arms, no hesitation, no fear. For the first time in weeks, Max rests his head against David's chest. David pulls him. Then, the emotions flooding him all at once. Grief, relief, love, and loss. "I'm here, Max, I'm here," he whispers through the tears. The camera pulls back, capturing the two of them in a moment of complete emotional release. The storm outside intensifies, but inside, there is peace. Weeks have passed. The healing process is slow but undeniable. Max and David have found their way back to each other. The bond is stronger than it's ever been. David sits on the porch, his hand resting on Max's back, as they watch the sunset together. The camera pulls back to show the two of them against the orange glow of the setting sun, peaceful and whole. David's voice is soft, filled with the weight of everything they've been through. Some things are worth fighting. "For," he whispers. The camera lingers on Max's face, now calm and at ease, his tail gently wagging. The bond that was lost has been rediscovered, deeper than before. Have you ever had a pet who taught you something about love and resilience? Share your story in the comments.